We passing out these flowers for my dad. He's been missing for 7 days, honey. He's never been gone this long. Just worrying about him, if he's all right. Don't know, if he's dead or alive. Don't know if they hurt him. We just want you to come back home, because this is so hurtful. We all love him so much.
David Hardy Jr. has been missing for just over 2 years. He's got a lot of family that's very concerned about him. Of course, anyone would be concerned when you have a family member at the age of 78 go missing. But on top of that, we've got a very serious condition that's affecting him, Alzheimer's. This family deserves answers. Is there something that we can do together to help them find them? It's time to turn on the searchlight for David Hardy Jr. John Lorden here. Before we get into the story of David Hardy Jr., I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on a similar case that we covered just a few weeks ago. That's the case of Vincent Shea. I did get on the phone with Vincent's son, Rick, and Vincent's daughter-in-law, Zoe, over this past weekend. We came up with a couple of ideas about new things they can try in their approach to help find Vincent. I hope to hear some good news back from them in terms of trying out those approaches. There are some developments. I don't know if they want to go public with them yet, but if they do, we will feature those here on the channel. We might even have them come on the channel to share some of that information. So just know that case is still in progress. And unfortunately now, we have another man missing that is also suffering from memory issues, but here it seems like we actually have a clinical diagnosis. His family has been very clear about the fact that David Hardy Jr. is suffering from Alzheimer's. So what can we learn about this case? Is there some way we can help them? Starting with an alert that I saw, which at first I thought, oh, well, good, he's been found. But then I realized this is an alert from 2016. So we can see we have a pattern here. He has disappeared before and he has been located. We can see on September 13th, 2016, the Acadia Parish Sheriff's Office actually put out this post saying specifically, missing person, 77-year-old David Hardy Jr. has been located. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a message like that since his current disappearance. His wife did comment in a video clip that I saw that he literally also disappeared just the day before this disappearance. I guess she didn't know where he went. He actually wound up showing back up home later that night. So a little bit of a history here. We're going to hear that a little more as we get into the news articles. But let's start with the details over at Namus. Date of last contact, July 8th, 2017. So obviously we're very concerned at this point. We don't know if he's still alive at this point, but I would like to hope that that possibility exists. In terms of where he disappears, he's driving his own vehicle. So he's following family and he essentially gets separated from them. So just some terrible circumstances here. He's missing from Oakdale, Louisiana. He went missing at the age of 78. He would now be 80 years old. He is 5'9", weighs about 160 pounds. I've seen some other reports that say he could weigh up to as much as 200 pounds. I'm not sure how accurate those are. I've only really seen photos of him pretty much from the neck up. He looks like a pretty slender guy, but most of the details I'm seeing on this put his weight somewhere around 160. Of course, he is African American. The Namus case we can see was created only in 2019. Kind of took a while for this case to get created. For circumstances, we don't have a whole lot. On July 8th, 2017, Mr. David Hardy was last seen by his family in the area of Broadway Avenue in Alexandria, Louisiana. Witnesses report seeing Mr. Hardy later that day in Oakdale, Louisiana. Mr. Hardy's vehicle was discovered abandoned in Elizabeth, Louisiana on July 10th, 2017. For physical description, black hair, might have some gray in there as well. Eye color is brown. We've got no other distinctive physical features. Here at Namus, we don't even have clothing and accessories that he was last seen in. Thankfully, we're going to get some of that information from Charlie Project, but that's really it for this profile. Not a whole lot to it. Certainly not a lot of detail. Over at Charlie Project, for clothing and jewelry description, he was wearing a gray t-shirt, blue jeans, a baseball cap, and brown Crocs shoes. They also note here his medical condition. Hardy suffers from Alzheimer's disease. He has gone missing before. Some other details. He was following his son's car in his own vehicle en route to Opelousas, Louisiana, when he took a wrong turn. Some other news reports that I've seen say that he was actually headed to his family's home in Eunice, which is quite a bit west of Opelousas. It would actually be a whole different route that you would take to get there. So most commonly in these stories, I'm seeing Opelousas. It was just one news story. It was a video segment where I saw Eunice, and I do believe he has family there. Hardy's family fears someone took advantage of his vulnerable state. He had Alzheimer's disease and could be confused. And looking back on this 2 years after the fact, I think there is certainly a chance that we have that happening. There's also a chance that we don't have that happening. It could be that he's confused and that he essentially gets lost. We're going to see his vehicle does wind up being found. Eunice police say Hardy suffers from memory loss. Hardy in the past has reportedly driven the vehicle until he runs out of gas, then leaves the vehicle parked and takes off walking. So very interesting that we have. Obviously, we have a pattern. We've seen trails of the pattern of him disappearing, but this is kind of a very specific thing. You know, he drives until his vehicle's out of gas and then he takes off on foot. Now, some of his family has stated he had trouble with his feet. Really wouldn't make sense for him to decide he was going to go off on some type of long walk. And this information isn't really coming from a particular source. There is someone that was caring enough to bring this case to my attention. He did a little more digging for me, trying to get more information. I asked him specifically if he could find out, he's a local, if he could find out if the car was out of gas when it was found. Unfortunately, we don't have that detail, but I'm very curious about that because if it was, this pattern that we're seeing here might not be too far off. And in terms of finding him, we probably should be really concentrating around where the vehicle is found. But where is it found? Let's go ahead and continue with the news to get to that. www.kplctv.com. David Hardy Jr.'s granddaughter filed a missing persons report with Alexandria police on July 9th. She said Hardy was last seen at noon on July 8th. So I think that's a little different than we saw. Oh no, July 8th at Namus. I think somewhere else that I had seen July 7th. But as you can see, they really quickly got the missing persons report started. Once again, this is a family seemingly doing everything that they should be doing in a case like this and just not getting the result. Over at KALB.com, his vehicle was located in Elizabeth, Louisiana on July 10th and had spoiled groceries inside. Hardy has no family in Elizabeth, and it is unknown why he was there. So the spoiled groceries thing, it's weird because his wife says he asked her if she needed anything from the grocery store. She said no, she didn't, but she didn't realize he was leaving, and all of a sudden he was gone. So I assume he did go to the grocery store. He did load up the car. What's interesting is her version of the story doesn't really seem to connect with the other family's version, which is he was following some family members to their home. It's almost like she doesn't know about that part, at least in the video segment that I saw. So I don't know if the groceries were, for him going to visit his family, or if maybe he had all that planned out and she just didn't know about it and he was going to leave her at home, something along those lines. I'm not sure. And of course we have confusion at play here. So it could be that maybe he thought she was aware of it, or maybe he just didn't realize what was going on with his wife at the time. But we do have the vehicle being found. We do have it found in a town called Elizabeth. And let's get some, this is actually the type of vehicle. It's a 2006 Mustang, silver. They describe that he has some type of black bumper cover on it. I haven't seen an actual photo of the vehicle, so I don't know if they're talking about front or rear. I kind of assume it might be the front, maybe, I don't know. I think they used to be called bras, if I remember right. That used to be like cloth covers that would cover the front bumper on certain vehicles and kind of go up around the headlights on some. But this is the type of vehicle. And of course, I'm just showing this because we're looking for someone that might have information about this, maybe saw this vehicle driving around. He was actually spotted in Oakdale, which was noted in the Namus profile. But let's continue with the details here. Over at klfy.com, July 14th, 2017, authorities in southwest Louisiana are still searching for a missing elderly man who went missing on Saturday. Allen Parish deputies located Hardy's 2006 silver Ford Mustang on Magnolia Street in Elizabeth, Louisiana on July 10th, 2017. Obviously, they did not locate Hardy himself. So let's take a look at the locations. We're talking about a lot of locations in this story, so I want to make sure that we kind of keep track of it all. So where he was last seen by his family, Broadway Avenue in Alexandria, that is up here. Now, like I said, we have a little bit of a discrepancy. Either he's heading to see his family in Eunice or heading to see family in Opelousas. That would mean that he was traveling down the 49 if he was going to Opelousas, or that he was traveling down the 13 if he was going to Eunice. In terms of where he's sighted, which is in Oakdale later that day, kind of makes more sense to me that he would have been heading to Eunice. But he is sighted in Oakdale, and then, of course, we have his vehicle found on Magnolia Street. And let's just get a little idea of where his vehicle is found. Kind of interesting. Looks like a bit of a closed hoop street, and it's right up against just all kinds of brush. We've got a pretty large area of vegetation right around that. Certainly concerning. And as you can see, Elizabeth is not a large town. As a matter of fact, a quick stop at Wikipedia tells us it's a town in Allen Parish, Louisiana. The population was 532 at the 2010 census. So very, very small population. Kind of makes you wonder, did he drive himself to this point? I mean, if we are following what that earlier article said, if the vehicle is out of gas, did he drive himself to this location and then go out on foot? And if he did, we're talking about a pretty dangerous situation because there's just a lot of land around here that isn't really thickly or densely populated. And on top of that, we've got him in a town of only 500 people. And now there's a good side to that in terms of people that might have information because it's such a small set. It should be pretty easy for law enforcement to kind of make contact with just about everyone in town if they want to and ask, have you seen this man? Or just by placing several posters, you're probably going to get most of that town covered relatively easily. I don't know if the family's tried that. I don't know if they've heard anything back from that or not. I do know they did try a cadaver dog search. That's according to information from his brothers. And they did not get any hits around the area of where his vehicle was found, which once again could be good news in this case. But if it is, where has he been for the last 2 years? I don't know. Carrying on to another article at KPLC TV, Sheriff's Office continues search for missing man since July, and this is in September of 2017. That's really all. There's nothing else to this article that we haven't covered already. Moving forward to KADN.com, August 15th, 2018, so now a whole year later. They do a piece where they talk with the daughter and wife of Mr. Hardy. I've already shared with you kind of the wife's story. And the daughter is basically, they're really at the point here where they just want answers. They know that there's a possibility he might not be alive. Pretty heartbreaking piece. Of course, I'll have a link to it in the description box down below so you can watch it for yourself. On top of that, we get another update over at katc.com, this one from February 14th, 2019. So you can see there's not a lot of news about what's happening with the investigation. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for the brothers mentioning the Cadaver Dog Search, I wouldn't have even known about that. I have no idea if law enforcement has conducted some searches in specific areas, possibly around where the vehicle is found. Another big point that his brothers raise is the vehicle could have been dropped there. Something could have happened to him somewhere else, and they're just looking in the wrong place. And I think there seems to be a good chance of that. Once again, that's why I'm really wondering about the gas tank. Was the gas tank empty or not? I think it's an important factor in a case like this where we've obviously seen a pattern where he's done that before. That might be an indicator to that pattern happening again. Unfortunately, for dumping a car, sometimes we see that too. People will kind of joyride it until the tank's empty. They probably don't want to be seen on camera, so they don't take it to a gas station and they just go and leave it somewhere. And this is a Mustang, a 2006 Mustang, kind of a sporty car. I can see someone wanting to possibly, take it for a joyride. So possibility of a crime of opportunity in this, I think, is certainly there. I think the brothers are making very good points thinking along those lines as well. But it's hard to know. It's because we've got a pattern, a predetermined pattern here of him disappearing. Nearly 2 years ago, Hardy's relatives began their search for him. That search continues today. We're not letting go, Hardy's daughter, Linda Hardy Freeman, said. We will not let this turn into a cold case. We're seeking closure. You're talking almost 2 years of not getting anything. So, and I think she's making a good point, because I think that's why we're not seeing a whole lot of news on this. I mean, it's like he's literally disappeared. No one knows where he is. We know of one Cadaver Dog Search. I don't know if there's a whole lot more searching that's happened since then. If there is, the press isn't necessarily covering it. She added, within that time of not having him there, he lost 2 of his children, his oldest daughter and oldest son. He has grandbabies that he's never seen yet. Freeman says hardly any clues have been found since her father went missing. The not knowing is the hardest part. Certainly. I've spoken to a lot of families, including when I was speaking to Vincent Shea's family just this past weekend, and we certainly talked about that aspect as well. Here we have another family square in the throes of having to deal with that. It's really, really tough on them. It's different when someone passes away and Freeman said. But when you don't know what happened, if anything happened to him and he's suffering, that's the hard part. Freeman says her father suffers from Alzheimer's disease and worries someone could have taken advantage of him. There was a witness that said she saw someone driving my dad's car and another car following him, but nothing, Freeman said. And that's the only little piece that I've seen about something like that. In one of the video segments, I'm not sure, I think it might be his daughter Linda, but she's talking about other information that they've heard from other people. And that's another thing that happens to these families when they have missing loved ones. All of a sudden, there's people that want to help, but they start contributing information that is questionable. And I don't know if that's what we're talking about here, where all of a sudden you're saying, hey, there's a witness that said they saw someone driving my dad's car. Or is that the legit sighting? Is that the witness from Oakdale, which certainly makes sense for where his car winds up? So that's one of those things. Without those additional details, I don't know if we should really put a whole lot of stock in that statement or not. And there is a Facebook page, but the family isn't putting out a very strong narrative on the Facebook page, so I'm not getting a good sense of at least even what their belief is. I just know that everyone's worried that something very bad has happened to him, and we might have a criminal running around that isn't being held responsible for it. Over at klfy.com, just a reminder, St. Landry Crime Stoppers, public help's needed in search for missing elderly man. This is another case where you can use Crime Stoppers. So if you want that information to be submitted anonymously, you can do that. And Crime Stoppers usually provides a reward. I do believe that there is a reward offered in this case as well. It's usually at least like $1,000, sometimes $2,000. Even if you submit a tip anonymously, you can still be eligible for that. They will give you a randomized number. If you see that the case is solved, you call them back with that randomized number. They'll confirm if your tip is the thing that broke the case, and if it is, you will get your reward. So, but I think what's more important than that is when Crime Stoppers is involved, you now have a way to submit tips anonymously that is pretty much guaranteed. It would really undermine the whole Crime Stopper system if they didn't have that anonymity piece. So it's something that you can actually trust. We've referred to it in time and time again after cases. Here are his two brothers. In terms of this video clip, I'm just trying to remember if there's anything else I want to share with you guys. Once again, I think the strongest point they make is the possibility that something could have happened to him somewhere else and someone could have driven the vehicle there. I don't know if any forensic work was done on the vehicle. Sometimes in these missing persons cases, it's not, because it's not treated as an actual crime scene, which is somewhat unfortunate, because in many of these cases, they do actually turn out to be criminals or criminal acts that are related to these cases. But we don't have a whole lot more detail there. I just know that they're making a very good point. If they can trust the sighting in Oakdale, I would really start from that location and then maybe try to conduct searches working towards Elizabeth. But as you can see, between Oakdale, which looks like it's certainly a much more populated area, between Oakdale and Elizabeth, I mean, there's just nothing. It's just open land, and you've got about, it looks like it's at least 4 miles, maybe a little more than 4 miles of just an open stretch with open land on both sides. Certainly a lot to try to search, but not impossible. And I think if the community would support and rally behind this family, maybe, ask their churches to help, maybe start getting just even a couple volunteers to just walk this stretch of the 10 on each side of the road. 4-mile stretch, I'm pretty sure you could, if you had a dozen volunteers, you can get that done in one day. Set half a dozen on each side of the road, have them walking in opposite directions, and go for it. And at least you would have a little bit of a perimeter search from the side of the road to maybe, 10 feet in, something along those lines. But it could be something that simple that actually solves this case. So as I mentioned, there is a Facebook group, Help Bring David Hardy Jr. Home. I'll have a link to that in the description box below, as well as everything that we've looked through today and a few other articles. They didn't have any information that's different from what I presented to you guys, so I kind of thinned them out on the presentation today, but they will be down there if you want to get through all of it. And there is a GoFundMe that is being run. My father, David Hardy Jr., has been missing since July 8th, 2017. He is now 80 years old and has Alzheimer's. His car was found in Elizabeth, Louisiana, abandoned in a country subdivision. There's not been much help from authorities in any area of the search for my dad! ! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. We are trying to raise money to offer a reward, to make flyers, to hire whoever we can find to find out what happened to my dad. It has been almost 2 years since we have saw my father, and our family desperately needs some type of closure, especially my mother, his wife. So they are asking for donations. As you can see, they've only raised $260 of a $5,000 goal. So on behalf of myself and my amazing supporters on PayPal and Patreon, we are going to make a donation to them just as soon as I'm done filming today's video, and I'll have a link to it in the description box below. If you could find it in your heart to also support their cause, please do so. This is a family that really needs help. They need some resources. This family can't solve this case without help from someone. So once again, just a huge thank you to my wonderful supporters so that we can help them a little bit, even if it's just buying some more flyers. Whatever it is that they can do with that, I really hope that it helps move this case forward for them. Speaking of supporters, I need to give a very big thank you to 2 new Patreon members. Amy Vermond, thank you so much for joining, Amy. I really appreciate it. And I hope it's Fio, might be Fio. Fio or Fio. Thank you very much for supporting on Patreon. If you want to do the same, you can do it over at www.lordandarts.com. In the upper right-hand corner are quick and easy links for either signing up on Patreon or PayPal, keeping me here doing what I love doing and helping people in need like we are doing with this case. Just a reminder, we need your help too. If you have friends in the Louisiana area, please share this video with them. There's not a whole lot of news coverage on it, as you can see, some small blips of local coverage. Let's change that. Let's use this video to really re-raise awareness and get more people thinking and looking for David Hardy Jr. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I'll see you back here on Friday with a brand new episode of Brainscratch on the Lord and Arts channel.